and today we're going to talk about data classification in Snowflake. Classification is the process of identifying what type of sensitive information is stored in every column in your data warehouse. You do this to define and assign the appropriate access policies for any column that might contain sensitive data. In this video, we're going to take a look at two SQL code-based methods you can use with Snowflake to classify data. Then we're going to compare them with the automated classification capabilities of ALTR. The first method we will look at is what we call the column name method. This is a common way of identifying what kind of data is in a column by looking at the column's name. You can do this by running a query against the information schema inside of Snowflake. So here I'm going to run this query, and this just gets a list from a columns table in the account usage schema of Snowflake, and you'll see you get a result of every column that's in the entire account. And so we have the database name, the table name, and the column name, and we did the search for a column name that was like %email %, which is a way of wildcarding, and it'll find any column that has the word email in it. Now, this approach has some issues. 3 off the top. One, you have to run it for every data type you're attempting to identify. And for example, here we're looking for email, but there are other types that we want to find. We'd like to find social security numbers, for example, maybe unique IDs that are internal to our company, credit card numbers. There's just a large number of data types that could be sensitive. And so there's a large number of expressions that you might have to filter on. And another issue is potentially you won't identify columns because the column is vaguely named or poorly named. For example, a data engineer might use an abbreviation EML for an email column instead of spelling out the word. And so you can miss some columns that might contain sensitive data. Also, results aren't automatically stored anywhere for future reference, so you'll have to manually store your results in some type of database, and then that way you can refer to them when it comes time to setting up policy and understanding which columns should be allowed to be accessed by which users. So to solve this misidentification problem, you could use Snowflake sampling queries. This is an example here where when you run it, what Snowflake does is it grabs a sample of rows from a table, no matter how many rows there are in that table. It just grabs a sample. In this example table that I have here, the table has about 10,000 rows, but we asked for just 10. And this is a much better way than using the column name because you can look at the contents of the column and it's obvious what kind of data is in it, at least in most cases. You can see zip codes, for example. We can see email addresses under the email address column. While this is a good approach, an even better one is to use a function that Snowflake provides called extract semantic categories. And basically it does the sampling for you and then gives you one object as a result for a table that you input. So you run extract semantic categories against a particular table. And now this takes time because Snowflake is looking at more than just 10 rows. You can specify how many rows you want it to look at. And what it's doing is it's looking at all of the values in each of those columns for that one table, and it's going to provide me a JSON object as an output that will list each column in that table and what it thinks the data type is inside of that column, and it'll present a score for that. So here we see the results, and I'm going to click on this so we can look at the JSON object in a little bit easier format. And you'll see that it provides a birth date, so that's one of the columns, and it assigns it as date of birth as the semantic category. So it's looking at obviously the date and the column heading, and then it gives us a probability score. And so this is done for every column inside of that particular table. We think this is a really good native capability, but it still has 2 familiar issues. One is that you still have to run this across every table that you have in your database. Also, you have to still manually store and present the results in order to use them for access policy creation later. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to switch here and contrast these manual steps with an automated, much simpler method. With ALTR, classification is completely automated and is fully integrated into this portal. You don't have to write any SnowSQL or even log in to Snowflake. All you have to do is choose the database that you'd like to classify, check this box here, tag data by classification, and then choose from one of the available methods of classification, or what we call tag types, that would be generated. So I'm going to choose Google DLP classification. And notice that choice includes the native methods from Snowflake. And then you hit the update button. This starts the process of classifying all the tables in that particular database. And once that job's complete, you'll get an email letting you know it's completed. When the classification jobs are completed, the results will be completely integrated into this interactive classification report. And the chart on the left lists the number of columns classified under various information categories. Clicking on the bars for the category will show you the list of database columns that have been identified under that category on the right-hand side. You can connect and govern a column directly by clicking on the Add Data button. This is how ALTR makes classification simple in just a few steps.